Hello and welcome to A Genteel Black Hole, the home of my bookish rambles. My name's Ali, and I have some thoughts. The other day, I watched this video about how to get into reading. Like, if you want to start reading more, but you don't really know where to start, can't kind of cultivate the habit. And I think it's quite an interesting subject to talk about. And this video that I saw, I found the advice that was given as the video went on just increasingly unrelatable to me. Now, I don't want to call out the creator of this video. I'm not going to mention them by name or tag their video, link to their video, or anything like that. I'm just using their points as a kind of jumping off point for my own thoughts, because I can't stop thinking about it ever since I watched this video. It just, so much of the advice did not make sense to me. Now, it may be that as I go on, you will find that the way that your brain is wired doesn't correspond with mine, and maybe this other person's video will make more sense to you than it does to me, in which case, obviously, feel free to completely disregard and ignore anything that I say. There's no one right way to do this. It's all about what works for you. So with that in mind, here is my own reaction to this advice that I saw. The first piece of advice they gave does actually make a lot of sense to me. That is something that I would echo as well, and that is to start with short books. I think if you pick something really long and difficult and daunting to start cultivating your reading habit with, I think that's going to be tricky for you. Obviously, if you get really hooked on that long book and you get really into it, then go for it. But generally speaking, I would agree that if you're not used to reading whole books, then picking something shorter to start with makes a lot of sense. It's easier to finish, to get to the end, and then feel the sense of achievement that you have completed a book. And that is one way to encourage yourself to keep reading, to read more. The knowledge that you can get through a book. So, yeah, this first piece of advice I do agree with. Short books are, a great way to start getting into reading. The second piece of advice was to avoid books that you have already seen an adaptation of, like seen a film or a TV version of. I can see the logic in this. I think what they were getting at was one of the motivating factors for keeping reading a book to get to the end of it is the curiosity, wanting to know what happens. And if you're reading a story that you're already familiar with from another medium, you don't have that motivating factor. However, for me, I'm one of those people that if I love a film, I will watch it again and again and again. I will read my favourite books multiple times. There's a lot of my favourite stuff that I know by heart because I've watched or read or listened to it so many times. So if you're someone like that, then possibly picking a book that was the source material for something else that you already love might be a good path into reading. In fact, I had a pretty severe reading slump for about 4 years, and it was only in 2019 that I finally kind of broke that slump and established the daily reading routine that I still keep up with today. And the book that helped me break that reading slump was a book that I had already seen not one, but two adaptations of, and that was Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy by John le Carre. I had seen the Gary Oldman film first from 2011, and I found it really intriguing, but also I could tell that it was really condensed, and I wanted to know like what they cut out to try and follow the plot better, because it's a very complex labyrinthine plot. So then I watched the TV miniseries from the late 70s with the amazing Alec Guinness as George Smiley. And again, that was like a much more complete picture of the story, but I could still tell that there was more, that I wanted more. I wanted to get like the full picture. And so I got a copy of the book, and I was still completely gripped by it, completely hooked, despite having already seen two different adaptations of it. And in fact, I have reread the book recently as well, and it continues to grip and intrigue me. So, yeah, if you really love a film or a play, a musical, a TV series, something that you know was based on a book, then actually that might be a good way in to reading. Obviously, you don't have the intrigue of waiting to find out what happens next because you are already familiar with the story, but that familiarity might actually be a comfort, might give you something to kind of hold on to. It will be easier to follow what you're reading because you already know it. Obviously, that won't work for everyone. The video that I saw, obviously, it wouldn't work for that particular person, which is why they advised against it. But I think that it is something to consider if your brain is wired the way that mine is. The third point is where this video really started to lose me, and that was the suggestion to read things that you know literally nothing about. So it's not just that you've not seen a film of it or anything, but you literally pick up a book at random and read it, regardless of like author, genre, anything. You just know nothing about it. And again, maybe this is my neurodivergence speaking, but I want to know something before I read a book. You know, isn't this why we watch BookTube videos? To get recommendations based on what other booktubers think is good. I don't want someone to just wave a random book in my face and say, this is good, read it, without telling me why I should read it, what's good about it. And that can be as simple as knowing what the genre is, because genres exist in all forms of fiction, not just books. And if you're already into movies or TV and you have particular genres that you gravitate towards, then it makes sense that you might also gravitate towards those genres in books. if you love Star Trek or Star Wars or Doctor Who, then you might want to try aiming for sci-fi books. If you love Midsummer Murders, actually I think Midsummer Murders were also books, but you might just want to consider trying murder mystery books. If you love documentaries, then you might want to try non-fiction instead. And yeah, I think it makes more sense to me anyway, that you want to know not necessarily the whole plot, not all of the twists and turns, not the ending, certainly not whodunit if it's a murder mystery, but you do want to have some idea of the genre and the tone and the style of a book before you go in. At least that's true for me. So, yeah, I think if you are into a particular genre, or particular genres, plural, then one way of finding good books for you, a good match for you, would be to look for books in that genre. And most genres will have kind of classics, highly regarded works in that genre, whether they're like really old ones or more recent hyped hits. Obviously, not every hyped book is also good, but yeah, I think it's one way of targeting your book search to keep genre in mind. Or if you don't like the idea of reading a book that you already have seen an adaptation of, I mean, for me, like I was talking about Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, if I had decided I didn't want to read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, but I wanted to read something like that, then I could think of other books by John le Carré. So that's another possible way in. If you don't necessarily want to read an actual story that you're familiar with from an adaptation, you could aim for something by the same author. Or, I mean, a lot of big franchises, especially stuff like Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, etc., there are books set in those universes as well. If you're just looking for a fun time, a romp with familiar characters, then there's loads of that stuff around. So if you're maybe someone that reads fan fiction about your favourite shows, there might be like officially published stuff in that universe as well. So that's another thing to consider. So yeah, if you don't like the idea of just picking up anything and trying to read it without any foreknowledge whatsoever, there are a lot of ways to target your reading without necessarily knowing the exact story. And the final piece of advice in this video was the one that was the most baffling to me, and that is to finish whatever you're reading, even if you're hating it. Now, maybe I'm taking this too literally, again with the neurodivergence, but I think that forcing yourself to finish a book that you are literally hating, that sounds like a surefire way to make you hate reading in general. If you want to cultivate reading as a hobby, as a habit, then I think you have to make sure that you enjoy it. This maybe sounds simplistic, but forcing yourself to finish something just to finish it, if you're not already in the habit of reading, if this is the only book you're going to finish this year, then why force yourself to finish something that you're not getting any enjoyment or enlightenment out of? That sounds to me like a way to train your brain into associating reading with discomfort and pain and frustration. And really, you want to be training yourself to associate reading with pleasure. So I think that you should give yourself permission to quit any book that you're not enjoying. If you're not sure about it, then it's worth maybe keeping going. It might pick up. But if you're literally hating it, then all you're doing is putting time into something that you hate that you could spend on something that you love. So, yeah, if you try something and you find that it's not for you, you're not obliged to get to the end of it to decide, yeah, this wasn't for me. You can put it down now, try something else, and eventually you will hopefully find a book that really clicks for you. And once you have cultivated the habit of picking up a book regularly, then it gets easier over time. It becomes more natural. I've found for myself what really works, being a creature of habit, and again, neurodivergence here. My whole day kind of runs on a schedule, and so I set aside a particular amount of time at the same time every day that is my reading time. That is when I read, which means that I necessarily need books to read to fill that time. And not all of them end up being hits, but if I'm hating one, I quit it. I DNF and move on to the next one. But that's my assigned time that I read every day. Now, I know not everyone will have the chance to carve out that time, or maybe you just don't work on a schedule like me. Maybe you're not like a Japanese train. Maybe you're more like an English train. But yeah, if you don't run on a schedule like me, then another good way of just making it easier to pick up a book is to, whatever you're reading, take it with you wherever you're going. If you have a spare 5 minutes, pick it up, read a few pages. Or if you prefer ebooks, then you could put the app on your phone, and then instead of scrolling social media when you're, I don't know, on the bus or the train or whatever, you could read a few pages of your book. And, I do still spend plenty of my day scrolling on my phone as well. But yeah, I think part of the trick is trying to lower the barrier to entry, to remove some of the things that daunt or distract you. So the more natural it becomes for you to pick up a book when you have a spare moment, the more you'll do it. And if you're really enjoying what you read and it's not just an obligation, then that becomes even easier still. So although I do agree that the sense of achievement that you get from finishing a book is also a really good motivation, I think that you will feel even more motivated if the book that you finish is one that you also love. And to make that more likely, I think you should give yourself permission to DNF anything that you hate. So, those are my rambling thoughts about an unspecified video. I hope some of that may have been vaguely useful to you, but I'm aware that one thing I didn't really do was name any books that I would recommend. So perhaps keeping in mind what I was saying about authors and genres, if you would like me to have a go at recommending some books that might appeal to you if you're a fan of a particular film or TV series, why not drop it in the comments, and I will maybe attempt to make a video about it, or just reply to your comment with my recommendation. I can't promise there'll be great recommendations. It might be that I'm just not familiar with the thing you're a fan of, but I'll give it a good go. So yeah, if you want to drop something in the comments, then please do. Anyway, that's about it from me. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you when I see you.